There is a quiet moment in every life where momentum is decided, not through force, not through luck, but through decision. Most people believe their lives are shaped by circumstances, by timing, by opportunity, but the truth is simpler and far less comfortable. Life responds to the level of decision a person is willing to make. Indecision feels harmless. It disguises itself as patience, as preparation, as being responsible. But indecision is not neutral. It quietly trains the mind to avoid commitment. And what the mind avoids long enough, it begins to fear. This is why so many people feel stuck without knowing why. They are not lacking ability. They are not lacking intelligence. They are lacking a final decision. The moment a decision becomes final, the mind changes its posture. It stops asking whether something is possible and starts asking how it will be done. This shift is subtle, but it is absolute. Most people never experience it because they live in preference, not decision. Preference says, I would like this to work. Decision says, this will work and I will adjust until it does. Preference collapses under pressure. Decision adapts. This is why clarity never comes before action. Clarity is earned through movement. When you act without certainty, the mind sharpens its focus. When you wait for certainty, the mind weakens its resolve. Confidence is not something you find. It is something you build by honoring decisions after the excitement fades. Discipline is what remains when motivation withdraws. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect practiced daily. A disciplined mind does not negotiate with comfort. It operates according to principle. Once a person decides who they are becoming, daily habits stop being debated. They become instructions. This is where persistence is born. Persistence is not heroic. It is automatic when the decision is final. People who quit do not lack strength. They lack finality. They decided emotionally, not structurally. Emotional decisions feel powerful in the moment, but collapse when resistance appears. Structural decisions are made quietly and enforced regardless of mood. Resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that the decision is being tested. The undecided retreat at resistance. The decided refine their approach. This is why persistence outperforms talent. Talent without decision becomes wasted potential. Decision without talent becomes mastery through repetition. Every day without decision carries a cost. That focus fragments, energy leaks, self-trust erodes. The mind begins collecting evidence of inconsistency and storing it as identity. Over time, this creates a dangerous belief. This is just who I am. That belief is not truth. It is residue from unmade decisions. Identity is not discovered. It is constructed through repeated alignment with chosen standards. Decide what you will no longer tolerate. Decide what effort looks like for you. Decide what future deserves your discipline. When the decision is made, the path does not reveal itself all at once. It reveals only enough to take the next step, and that is all the mind requires. Momentum is not built through certainty. It is built through follow. The world does not reward intention. It responds to consistency. Quiet consistency outperforms loud ambition. Those who appear fearless are not without fear. They have simply decided that fear does not get a vote. Decision is not the end of doubt. It is the end of negotiation. Once negotiation ends, energy consolidates, focus sharpens, behavior aligns. This is the moment lives begin to move forward, not dramatically, but irreversibly. Decide once, honor it daily, and let time do what it always does for the persistent. It rewards them. Once a decision is made, a quiet transformation begins, not on the outside, but within. The mind stops scanning for escape routes. It stops rehearsing excuses. It begins looking for alignment. This is why most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is force. It is not. Discipline is simply behavior that has been relieved of negotiation. When there is no longer a debate about whether you will act, energy that was once wasted on hesitation becomes available for execution. This is why undecided people feel tired all the time. Their energy is being spent internally, arguing with themselves. Decision ends that argument. Once the decision is final, discipline feels natural, not easy, but natural. The disciplined mind does not rely on mood. Mood fluctuates, emotion rises and falls. Discipline operates above both. It answers to principle, and principle, once chosen, becomes a compass. This is where most people get lost. They want results without principles. They want progress without standards. But standards are the architecture of identity. Without them, behavior collapses under pressure. Pressure does not create character, it reveals it. When pressure arrives, the undecided retreat inward. They wait, they reassess. They hope circumstances will soften. The decided do something very different. They narrow their focus. They simplify. They execute what matters and discard what does not. This is the discipline of elimination. Progress is rarely about doing more. It is about removing what no longer aligns with the decision. Distraction thrives in undecided minds. Clarity thrives in committed ones. Once a decision is made, certain things lose their appeal. Noise becomes irritating. Excuses become obvious. Comfort becomes suspicious. This is not deprivation. It is prioritization. The mind cannot pursue two futures at the same time. It must choose. And once it chooses, it reorganizes. Habits begin to shift quietly. Time is suddenly accounted for. Energy is protected. Standards replace hope. This is why persistence is misunderstood. Persistence is not stubbornness. It is consistency anchored to a decision. People admire persistence without understanding its source. They think it is willpower. It is not. Willpower is fragile. Decision is durable. Willpower requires constant renewal. Decision renews itself through alignment. When behavior matches identity, effort feels lighter, not because the work is easier, but because resistance has less leverage. Resistance feeds on ambiguity. It thrives where commitment is partial. This is why people quit right before momentum builds. They mistake resistance for failure, but resistance is not failure. It is feedback. It signals that the old identity is being replaced. The mind resists change, even when the change is chosen. This is normal. The difference is how it is interpreted. The undecided see resistance as a warning. The decided see it as confirmation. Confirmation that something meaningful is underway. This is where patience becomes powerful. Not passive patience, but disciplined patience, the kind that continues to act without immediate reward. Results lag behind decisions, always. This delay causes most people to abandon the path. They assume nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, alignment is forming. Habits are consolidating. Identity is stabilizing. And once identity stabilizes, results accelerate. This is the part no one sees. The quiet weeks, the uncelebrated consistency, the repetition without applause. But this is where outcomes are earned. The disciplined mind understands something the impatient never do. Momentum is cumulative. It cannot be rushed, but it can be interrupted. Every time you honor a decision when it would be easier not to, self-trust increases, and self-trust compounds faster than confidence. Confidence depends on outcomes. Self-trust depends on integrity. Integrity is simply keeping promises made to yourself. This is the foundation of authority, not dominance, not control, but internal alignment. A person who trusts themselves moves differently. They speak with restraint. They act with precision. They do not rush. They do not explain excessively. They do not seek permission to proceed. This is not arrogance. It is clarity. And clarity is always calm. The disciplined mind is not loud. It is consistent. It does not chase validation. It builds evidence quietly, daily. This is how identity is forged, not through intention, but through alignment repeated over time. Identity is not something you discover. It is something you practice. Most people wait for identity to arrive fully formed. They believe clarity about who they are must come first before they act consistently. But identity does not precede behavior. It follows it. You do not act because you are disciplined. You become disciplined because you act. This is the reversal most people never make. They ask, who am I? When the real question is, what am I repeatedly doing? Behavior answers that question honestly. Identity is the accumulation of those answers over time. This is why small actions matter more than dramatic ones. Dramatic actions impress others. Small actions convince the mind. The mind does not respond to intensity. It responds to consistency. Every repeated action casts a vote for the person you're becoming. And eventually, those votes become law. This is where standards enter the conversation. Standards are not goals. Goals are destinations. Standards are the rules you live by along the way. A goal can be postponed. A standard cannot. When standards are clear, decision-making becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. You no longer ask, "What do I feel like doing?" You ask, "What aligns with the standard I have chosen?" This removes emotion from the equation, and emotion, when left unchecked, is the greatest saboteur of long-term progress. Emotion is temporary. Standards are permanent. This is why people with standards appear calm under pressure. They are not improvising. They are executing a known code. Pressure does not confuse them. It clarifies priorities. The undecided panic under pressure because every choice feels personal. The decided respond under pressure because every choice is procedural. They already decided who they are. Now they simply act accordingly. This is the power of identity-based discipline. It removes friction from execution. When identity and behavior align, resistance loses its voice. Resistance thrives in identity gaps. When actions contradict self-image, the mind experiences conflict. That conflict drains energy. But when actions reinforce identity, energy stabilizes. This is why consistency feels easier over time, not harder. The work does not shrink, the resistance does. At first, discipline feels heavy because the identity is not yet established. You are acting against habit, against comfort, against old patterns. But repetition changes the internal narrative. What once felt forced begins to feel expected. Eventually, it feels inevitable. This is the moment identity locks in. When quitting no longer feels like an option, not because of pressure, but because it no longer fits who you believe yourself to be. People misunderstand this stage. They call it confidence, but it is not confidence. It is coherence. Coherence between thought, behavior, and belief. This coherence creates stability, and stability creates momentum. Momentum is not speed, it is direction maintained over time. Fast movement without direction creates chaos. Slow movement with direction creates destiny. This is why the long game favors the discipline. Time magnifies alignment. It also magnifies inconsistency. Everyone is rewarded by time. The disciplined are rewarded positively. The undisciplined are rewarded honestly. Time does not judge, it reveals. The longer the horizon, the more powerful standards become. This is why shortcuts fail. Shortcuts attempt to extract reward without an identity change. But reward without identity creates fragility. It cannot be sustained. Identity must expand to hold success. Otherwise, success collapses back to familiar levels. This is not bad luck, it is misalignment. Sustainable progress requires a version of you capable of maintaining it. That version is built, not imagined. It is built through standards honored when no one is watching, through discipline maintained without applause, through decisions upheld when convenience offers an exit. This is the quiet work, the invisible work, but it is also the most important work, because once identity shifts, effort changes form. You no longer push yourself forward. You are pulled by who you have become. And that pull is relentless. Time is the one variable most people misunderstand. They treat time as an enemy, something to outrun, something to beat, something to rush. But time is not opposed to progress. It is indifferent. And that indifference is precisely what makes it powerful. Time does not respond to urgency. It responds to consistency. This is why impatience sabotages so many efforts. Impatience assumes that results should arrive on the same schedule as effort. But effort and results operate on different timelines. Effort is immediate. Results are delayed. The delay is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. The delay filters out those who are committed from those who are merely interested. Interest fades when reward is postponed. Commitment adapts. This is why the long game favors the discipline. They understand that time is not something to fight. It is something to partner with. Every day of aligned behavior deposits into the same account. The deposits are small, often unimpressive, sometimes boring, but they accumulate. And accumulation is invisible until it isn't. Most people quit during the invisible phase. They assume nothing is happening because nothing is happening loudly. But alignment is always quiet at first. Roots grow before branches appear. Stability forms before expansion occurs. This is why patience is not passive. Patience is active restraint. It is the discipline to continue behaving in alignment even when the mind demands proof. Proof comes later. Alignment comes first. The person who understands this stops seeking reassurance. They stop measuring progress emotionally. They measure it structurally. Are my actions aligned with my standards? If the answer is yes, the outcome becomes irrelevant in the moment, because time will do what time always does when alignment is maintained. It multiplies. This is the inevitability most people never reach. They quit too early. They adjust too often. They renegotiate decisions that should have been final. Final decisions create linear paths. Linear paths create momentum. Momentum, given time, becomes force. Not dramatic force, quiet force. The kind that cannot be stopped because it does not announce itself. This is why true progress looks boring from the outside. There are no sudden breakthroughs, no cinematic moments, just steady movement in one direction. And then, one day, the distance traveled becomes undeniable. People call it overnight success. But it is never overnight. It is the delayed reward of sustained alignment. The disciplined understand this, and so they are not in a hurry. Urgency creates errors. Patience creates accuracy. Accuracy compounds. This is why the disciplined mind appears calm. It is not because the stakes are low. It is because the direction is certain. Certainty eliminates panic. Panic comes from indecision, not difficulty. Once the direction is chosen, difficulty becomes expected. And expectation removes fear. Fear survives on surprise. The disciplined are rarely surprised. They know resistance will come. They know progress will stall at times. They know effort will feel unrewarded for longer than feels reasonable. And they proceed anyway. This is not optimism. It is understanding. Understanding that alignment maintained long enough always produces results. Not because the world is fair, but because systems respond to consistency. Decide once. Align daily. Remove negotiation. Let time apply pressure evenly. What remains after that pressure is not chance. It is the outcome you built, quietly, patiently, inevitably.